Hi, third graders, and welcome to our next lesson on fractions. Today we're going to start by reviewing the things that we've learned so far this week about fractions, and then we're going to build on what we've learned and move forward. So the first thing that I want to review is some of that vocabulary. We learned about the word partition. Do you remember what it means to partition a shape? Hopefully, you remember that it means to divide the shape into equal-sized pieces. Equal is the most important word because in order for a fraction to be a fraction, it has to be equal pieces. We also learned about the word congruent, which is a fancy word for equal. So if the pieces are congruent, that means that they are equal. So today we're going to learn two new words. And those words are the words that name the top part and the bottom part of fractions. So let's say that I have the fraction 1/2. So this top part, sorry, my two's a little sloppy. This top part is called a numerator. Can everybody say that with me? Numerator. And the numerator, I'm going to write that word, numerator, is the top number and it names the pieces. So the numerator tells how many parts of the whole. So if we're looking at the fraction 1/2, that tells us that there is one part out of the whole. So the numerator tells you how many parts of the whole. The second word that we're going to learn today is denominator. Can everybody say that word with me? Denominator. And the denominator is the bottom number in a fraction, and it tells you how many pieces are in the whole. How many pieces are in the whole? And that means like the whole shape. So looking at this fraction, if we have a numerator of 1, that means that there is one part, and the denominator is 2. That means that there are 2 pieces total. So 1 out of 2 total. So if I were to look at this shape that has halves, 1/2 would be one part out of 2, which is the total. So that's what we're going to be working on today, is naming each part in a fraction. So this piece right here, we're going to start with these halves. Remember, halves are 2 equal pieces. So this piece is one part out of 1, 2 total. And we name that 1/2. And this piece is also one part out of 2 parts total, 1/2. And we learned earlier in the week that if we put those two together, 1/2 and 1/2, we would have 2 halves. And anytime a fraction has the same numerator, that's the number on top, and denominator, that's the number on the bottom, it's always equal to 1 whole. So 2 halves is the whole shape there. All right, let's name these thirds. So thirds are one of 3 equal pieces. So this would be 1 part out of 3 total, 1/3. This would also be 1 part out of 3 total, 1/3. And this is 1 part out of 3 total, 1/3. All right, do you guys kind of see that pattern? Let's look at fourths. So this piece right here is 1 part out of 1, 2, 3, 4 total, so 1/4. And this part is 1 part out of 4 total. This piece is also 1/4. And this piece is also 1/4. Anytime that you guys have a fraction that has a 1 in the numerator, we call that a unit fraction. So a unit fraction is just 1. So the unit fraction for fourths would be 1/4. And we'll work on that word a little bit more as we continue with this unit. So a unit fraction is just 1 part. So what do you guys think that the unit fraction would be for this thirds model? If you said 1/3 is the unit fraction, then you are correct. 1/3 is a unit fraction. All right, let's look at these fifths. What do you think we would label this piece as? How many parts is it? This is one part. And how many pieces are there total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 1/5. And this is also 1/5. And each of those pieces are 1/5. And that would be the unit fraction for fifths as well. All right, before we move forward, I want to give you guys my trick for remembering numerator and denominator, because those can be tricky words. I always think about my favorite football team, Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish. So N is on top, D is on the bottom. Notre Dame. So whenever you're trying to remember which one's the numerator, which one's the denominator, just remember Notre Dame, ND. All right. So here is the same thing that we just did, but with a couple of different fractions that are partitioned. So each of those pieces is labeled with its how many parts it is out of how many total. So 1/2 and 1/2. These are thirds, fourths, sixths, and eighths. All right. So what you guys are going to be doing today is labeling the parts of each shape. So these are equally partitioned shapes that are all congruent pieces. So you're going to click and drag the fractions to label the parts. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. This shape is split into fourths. And each piece is one part out of 4 total, or 1/4. So I'm going to click and drag 1/4, and this is 1/4, to each of those pieces to name them. So each of those pieces are a fourth of the total. All right, guys, I hope that this lesson helped you remember how to label different parts of shapes and fractions, and that you guys learned something new. Don't forget, Notre Dame, numerator and denominator. When you guys get done with this assignment, make sure to share it with your teacher, and then you can complete 2 rounds of extra math, and finally, you can work on your multiplication facts. I can't wait to see you guys next time.